Hey everyone, Hassan here. You are listening to the NintendoFuse Podcast. Today is Tuesday, March 1st, 2016. This is episode number 123, entitled Celebrating Old, Anticipating New. Today, I have Steve here with me.
Hey guys, how's it going?
We have Greg.
Hi everyone.
And Barry.
Hey guys.
We are all ready. 2016. I guess this is our first podcast of the year. I know it's kind of been a busy beginning of the year, so we haven't gotten a chance to do an episode yet, but we're excited to be back and doing more episodes now, which is really fun. So we have a lot to talk about tonight. A lot of great things. As the title kind of explains, we're celebrating old. We're celebrating some great franchises from Nintendo, and we're anticipating the new stuff. We're going to talk about a lot of rumors going around and lots of interesting stuff on the way, definitely. So, the first topic that we want to get into tonight is the Legend of Zelda. So, the Legend of Zelda recently... Yeah, anybody want to sing the theme song?
Throw back to the beginning days.
Yeah, I was about to say I'm not going to try that one again. Yeah. So, Legend of Zelda, the original game, 30th anniversary happened recently, and that's pretty crazy. 30 years. Can you believe that? The series is older than me. So, that's
now you make the rest of us feel old, damn it.
I was 3 when it came out. Actually, it was probably 2. Actually,
yeah, 2.
Yeah, because I turned 3 at the end of that year, so it came out earlier. So I was
yeah.
2. It's weird.
It's crazy to think about. It's such a big franchise, definitely. And I know this franchise means a lot to all of us, and so what we decided to do in honor of that, every year we kind of do like our best games of the year. We all kind of have our top picks. We compile it all our votes together, and we crown our game of the year. Well, we thought to crown our, Zelda of the 30 years. I don't know what title to call it, I guess, but the best Zelda game, essentially, based on all of our votes. So I want to kind of jump into that. What I'm going to do is we're going to go through the top 5 winners. So we'll start with 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and then the winner. And then we'll kind of each take turns and talk about, our specific picks and what the franchise means to us, essentially. So we'll kind of jump into that. Now, so we picked our top 5 picks. All of us. All of us picked our top 5 picks. And what I did is, the first place pick got 5 points, second place 4 points, and so on, down to last place got 1 point. And then I totaled up all the point totals to pick our overall top 5 Zelda game. When I did that, the number 5, the 5th place, there was a 3-way tie.
Interesting.
So
Nice.
that's the only tie. But it was a 3-way tie.
It's just 5th place. We couldn't agree on what our 5th place was.
Yeah, probably
Exactly.
That's probably it.
So as far as picking a 5th place winner, I don't know. Like, is there any kind of a criteria you guys think that I can do, or should I just say them all 5 or all 3 of them?
All 3 of them.
They all tie.
All right, let's do the 3 titles. So the 3 of these got 5 points each.
You can do them in alphabetical order. I don't know.
Okay. But then do I go by like the A and the or the?
Oh man, that's tough.
They're making this way too complicated.
Maybe in order of release.
Oh gosh, I don't even know that. All right, I'm just gonna pick something
more complicated.
here. So these 3 games each had 5 points. So that could have been like one of us picked it as our top choice, or like a mix of other things, or whatever. But one of the 3 was A Link to the Past. Okay. Another one of the 3 5th place choices was Link's Awakening. And another one of the choices was Twilight Princess. So those 3 games tied for 5th place, basically, between us. Barry's shaking his head.
You know exactly why.
I do. So we'll talk about some of that. So that brings us to our fourth place winner. And before I get into that, by the way, I want to know what you guys think too in the chat. So if there's anybody out there in the chat room or anything, post your comments. Let us know what your favorite Zelda games are, and we'll talk about it on the podcast. You can even call into the show live and voice your thoughts. And if you need any of the information on how to do that, if you head to NintendoFuse.com right now, the post about the podcast right there has all the phone numbers and everything, and you can actually call into the podcast live, and we'll get your thoughts on the show.
You could probably just
fourth place.
hit 4 a whole bunch of times and probably get it.
Pretty much, yeah. In case you want the number, it's 724-444-7444. So literally, he's not kidding. There's a lot of 4s. Speaking of 4, fourth place, we have The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. So that was fourth place. Okay. All right, now we're in our top 3. So these are the top 3 best Zelda games of all time, according to us. All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
Number 3 is A Link Between Worlds. So wasn't that our game of the year one year for
Yep.
NintendoFuse? Yeah.
I
So
think
for
3 years ago.
yeah, like 2014, I think, right?
Yeah.
2014 was the year.
Man, it's been
Yes.
2 years ago since it launched.
I know, it's crazy. So yeah, so our game of the year for 2014 is not our favorite Zelda game. It's only 3 on the list. So what could be the top 2? All right, here we go. Ready? Number 2. Top Zelda games of all time. The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Which, I mix the 3D version in there, whether it's the 3D version or the N64 version, whatever it is. So Ocarina of Time is our number 2 Zelda game. So that brings us to the winner. What is our top Zelda game? Before I do that, I want to say Mike in the chat says Majora's Mask, Minish Cap, and Skyward Sword are his favorites. So good choices. 2 of them are not in our top 5. Skyward Sword we already said was, but it's cool about that because the franchise, there's so many different tastes that people have, so many different opinions, and it's interesting. So, all right, let's get to our top game. It is
Phantom Hourglass.
The Legend of Zelda. That's it, The Legend of Zelda.
Legend of Zelda.
The original. So, in honor of, I guess, the game's 30th anniversary, I guess it's kind of fitting that was our top pick for best Zelda game, basically. So, with that being said, we've crowned our winners. The Legend of Zelda takes it as the original. Let's kind of all take turns and go through some of our specific thoughts and just what Zelda kind of means to each of us. So, Steve, you want to kick things off?
Sure, yeah. So I don't remember when I got Zelda, the original one, and I actually don't remember which one I played, whether it was Zelda or Zelda 2 first, because I remember getting them right around the same time, and I was really excited because I was a little kid and had my new Nintendo and everything, and these gold cartridges I thought was really cool, and I remember playing both of them quite a bit when I was younger, and I do remember thinking that both of them are really difficult, especially Zelda 2. But Zelda 1 was particularly difficult for me because I'd heard that if you use the name Zelda as your name, it did something cool. I had no idea what cool thing it did. And so, lo and behold, years later, I realized that I was always playing the more difficult version of the original one. So I go back like years later and finally don't use Zelda as my name, and I'm like, oh, this isn't nearly as hard as I thought it was. So I always thought Zelda was an incredible. I mean, it's still a difficult game, but it's not nearly as difficult as I thought it was, because once you actually, especially if you go, if you follow, like I had the gigantic map that had all the layouts and everything, and I kept thinking, like, things are different in this other version. Why is the map not matching up correctly? Why are things different? Now I know why. But yeah, so I remember using the map and everything, went through the actual, the original game, and just, once you go through it the right way, it's not nearly as difficult. But I remember just the open world aspect, just randomly coming upon dungeon, and then like just getting murdered because like I wasn't ready for that, because apparently I jumped into dungeon 3 way before I even finished came across dungeon 1. So that was really cool. I think I really like the open world aspect of it, which is one of the reasons why I personally picked A Link Between Worlds as my favorite game, because it kind of goes back to that open world aspect. It's not completely, but it's getting there. And I think all of us that when we wrote our thoughts on our Zelda games the other day on the blog post, a lot of us, actually I think all of us, shared the idea that we hope that the game will continue to go that direction. And I think that's why we all picked the original one, probably as one of the reasons why we picked the original one as our favorite, because it really it captured that heart of Zelda. I mean, it was the original, so obviously it captured the heart of it. But it was just really fun. It really felt like you were on an adventure for the first time ever, and they've been building on it ever since. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I've never really gotten to the handheld games. I think I've said this before on the podcast. I didn't actually play any of the Game Boy version, the Game Boy Advance versions, the DS versions, especially the touchscreen ones, because I really don't like the touchscreen controls. Link Between Worlds was actually my first handheld one that I played all the way through and loved it, of course. So yeah, that's my history with Zelda. Love it.
Cool. What about you, Greg?
Well, like Steve, I started off with the NES ones. I do remember we distinctly had the first one originally, and then for one of my birthdays I got Zelda 2, and then me and my brother always had to like share our NES games, so we'd always like go back and forth and like obviously share each other's games. And then I immediately traded him Zelda 2 for the original because I really loved it so much and had so many positive experiences going through it with him and my cousin helping me out to navigate through all the different dungeons and the overworld map. I remember going through, playing the second quest, and seeing how much harder it was, and that's quite a challenge to be taking on the first way around, Steve. I had to say that. Zelda 2 obviously is super difficult. I did go into the handheld ones. I started with Link's Awakening. That was a really good game as well. I remember changing the batteries moments before it was about to die, and so I wouldn't lose my progress. I've basically played every single game up to this point now. Originally, I did not play the Game Boy Color ones or the Four Swords ones right off the bat, but I've since gone back and revisited both of those. I also really like the series for the open worldness. I had wanted to put it out there. I actually had my top 3 were actually the 3 that we had in the correct order. So I did like A Link Between Worlds because it kind of goes back to that open world feeling that I really love about the original. I'm really excited for the Wii U version, as it should be a continuation upon that and be extremely more expansive, and I couldn't be more excited for it. Other than that, I've just really loved the series. I also love these awesome little figurines. Got every single Zelda one, Toon Link, Ganondorf, Zelda, and Sheik. So, big fan of the series, excited to see where it's going in the next 30 years.
Sweet. Cool. What about you, Barry?
Well, anyone who's watched this podcast knows my feelings on Zelda. I mean, it is. I would say it's probably. I was gonna say it's my most important franchise in my life of games. Now I have to say it's tied with Final Fantasy, only because I met my wife through Final Fantasy 11, so that tipped the scale for Final Fantasy. But in terms of my childhood was Zelda. That was my adventure. Coming from a broken home, no child wants to deal with the realities of having to grow up. So Zelda was my escape, and I loved when I could finally play the original Zelda and Zelda 2, and some of my fondest memories are sitting there with graph paper and trying to map out where everything was, because there was no internet and I was the only one of my friends that played it, so I didn't even have someone to talk to. So I had to try to figure out everything, and when I accomplished beating the game on my own, it was just amazing. And I knew about the Zelda trick to get the second quest, but I didn't want to do that until I beat the first one. But unlike Greg, I didn't pick the top three in the top order. Mine were actually the opposite, and the reason I was shaking my head is because Link's Awakening is on the list, tied for third, or for fifth with 5 points, because that was my number one. And that was my number one because it was the first one I truly owned. It was the one I was able to take with me, and honestly, there are so many characters that have come into the Zelda series, and so many memorable characters. But to me, the inhabitants of Koland Island were just so amazing because they were so wacky, and they really was, we're gonna do whatever the hell we want because it's a dream. We had Mario enemies and all that stuff, and just to see them all fade away at the end when you had to, it was just so somber. And Bow to the Windfish is probably my favorite Zelda theme of all time, right above Bow to the Goddess, and it's so rewarding to finally beat Nightmare and wake up the Windfish, but to see everybody else fade away and know, oh crap, I just killed an entire village and all the island inhabitants. It just, no Zelda game has since done that. Even Twilight Princess, at the end, which had a very sad ending, you didn't kill anybody. They just went to the Twilight Realm and were locked away. So to me, that was just truly touching. And like everybody else, I love the open world. I love the open world thing about Zelda 1. I love the open world about, the early ones too. A Link to the Past, another one I'm shocked to see so low. And Link, Link's Awakening is the same thing, as is A Link Between Worlds. They're all very open world-ish, and you can actually tackle dungeons orders. So for that, I think it's really, really important. And I love it overall. It's so powerful of a game.
Yeah. Cool. Before I jump into my thoughts real quick, to anybody in the chat, if you guys want to post any of your thoughts as well, let us know. Mike was hoping for Spirit Tracks as somebody's top choice, but unfortunately it was not on our list. I actually never played Spirit Tracks. I played Phantom Hourglass, but
yeah, I think if it wasn't for the touchscreen controls, I would have played those games. I was excited about them when they came out. I was like, wow, a new 3D-ish kind of Zelda game, on the go. I can put it on my DS. This is great. And then I was like, touchscreen only controls. I don't know. I've never been into adventure games with touchscreen controls, so it's just not my thing. Obviously, some people really enjoy them, but not me.
I thought that too, but it worked. It really did work.
I was gonna say I don't really remember it being all 100% touchscreen. I thought it was. I barely used the stylus and barely used the screen at all. I thought you could use it to help navigate Link and move him around, but I don't think you had to use it as in Skyward Sword using the Wii remote to use with the sword. Maybe I'm completely off base, but I don't remember.
No, you needed to use the touchscreen on Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks. You did, but it actually worked, and I didn't think it would either because I'm not a fan of touchscreen controls, and that was the one game that said, "All right, let me do it." But it did work.
Yeah, I don't mind it for. I don't mind it for. I think completing puzzles and stuff like that just kind of makes sense, but I don't know. Was it even okay with combat? Did that, or were you just kind of swiping at your screen the whole time? Because that's the annoying part for me. I don't want to have a stylus just hitting my screen all the time to attack.
I mean, you have to you swipe, but you don't have to jab your screen or anything like that. I mean, you could just swipe, and get it done, and double tap to roll. So it's very oh my god, I'm gonna need a hit. It worked. And I haven't replayed the game since I beat them back then, and I need to. Just no time, but it's definitely worth giving it a shot. if you had to pick one of the two, I would say Spirit Tracks is by far the better one, only because that stupid dungeon in Phantom Hourglass that keeps you going back to it over and over and over. And Zelda as a companion is really unique. It's the first time she's with you the entire game, so that alone makes it worth it.
Yeah, definitely interesting, I guess, experiments with the Zelda franchise to kind of try with different control methods and such. But for me, I guess growing up, and this may be a little bit of an unpopular opinion, I prefer the 3D Zeldas to the 2D Zeldas, or at least that's what I did growing up. I've started to kind of come around a bit more. So my top choice was Skyward Sword, and second was Twilight Princess. Those two, I really liked. I liked the motion controls too. I know people didn't like that, but I actually really enjoyed it. It was just cool to kind of see the 3D Zelda with even better graphics, at the time on Wii and everything with Skyward Sword and so on. And I'm excited for the future of Zelda on Wii U or NX or whatever, I guess now, which we'll talk about. But so those were great. And then I also had Hyrule Warriors and Ocarina of Time on my list. Hyrule Warriors, I guess, is a spin-off title, but it's still part of the Zelda franchise in a way, and it's pretty fun and interesting in its style. But the one 2D Zelda game that I did have was Triforce Heroes, which I got recently, and I've been playing that. And that's actually pretty fun. From what I've played of it, I've been playing with my fiance online, and then just one other random person as well. And it's been a lot of fun to kind of just go through and try all the different items and try and figure out how to beat some of the bosses and everything. And it's pretty unique, and all the different costumes, and I'm just kind of getting started with some of that, but it's been a lot of fun, and it's kind of turning me a little bit around on some of the 2D Zelda games. It kind of makes me want to explore some of that a little bit more now. So I'm definitely interested in some more of that. But overall,
I was gonna say, as somebody who has completely beaten Triforce Heroes, if that is your first foray into 2D Zelda games and you're interested, you will absolutely love every other 2D Zelda game. And no knock to Triforce Heroes, because it's a great game. The community, the people, unless you get paired with some really awesome people, good luck getting through the Den of Trials. Like, it is insane. Like, it took two of my friends, literally 4 days to do Den of Trials. And that was 8 hours a day, because it was just so aggravating towards the end. So I hope you get good people, because you will hate it.
But honestly, we've been stuck more because of lag recently than anything. It just depends on who we get paired up with and that sort of thing. I've played a couple of other 2D Zelda games, but I guess, I don't know, my gaming tastes have kind of evolved over time, and I feel like now if I were to go back and play some of them, I would enjoy them more, I think. Then I don't think I guess I would have probably appreciated them as much before, just because knowing my taste in gaming. But now I feel like I can go back and appreciate more of those 2D Zelda games, so I'll definitely try and explore more of that. But the one thing that's really made me a big fan, especially, is the music. I'm a big fan of music in general, gaming music and all of that, and the Zelda soundtracks are phenomenal. I saw the Zelda Symphony Orchestra concert when they did that. It was incredible. It's just amazing stuff. That alone sold me on the franchise pretty much. So
yeah, I agree. Yeah. There's a lot of times I think I can't remember which why I got the sound. I think it was a pre-order bonus or something like that I got a couple of the soundtracks through Club Nintendo or some different things here and there. And I remember doing different things over the past few years, and I don't know, sometimes I think the first time it came up, it was just on my iTunes music or something, and it was just on random, and then a Legend of Zelda song came on. I'm like, this is pretty awesome. And so now whenever I'm even cleaning the house, sometimes I'll just throw Zelda music on, and it makes me feel like I'm on an epic journey, even though I'm
Please tell me you're not cleaning near any pots while you're doing that.
I'm cutting the lawn. He's cutting them off.
I just get out a giant
Okay.
sword and start walking around the yard. So
Yeah.
Getting rich though.
I try to stay away from chickens as well.
Yes.
Oh man, yeah, definitely some great music.
I just remembered the last time we had a really long Zelda conversation or whatever. I think was like back around Halloween, and I remember my wife coming down, like running downstairs at the time, and thinking we were like all dying or something because we were all yelling like Link.
Us? Never.
Yeah, she came down, well, she heard me most of all, and she's like, "Are you okay?" She just heard me going "ah" the whole time.
That was when you had the hoodie on.
Yeah.
We need like a soundboard or something, a Legend of Zelda soundboard, but not with the actual sound effects, but with us recreating the sound effects.
That's right.
Oh my God.
That'd be great.
Listeners, we don't want to scare them away.
Yeah. Hey, if they haven't been scared away already from everything we've done on the podcast, after over 6 years. But that pretty much is it for the for our Legend of Zelda segment. So 30 years, which is awesome, and a lot of different great games. As you saw, we all have our favorites. Lots of different titles out there to try, old or new, 2D, 3D, whatever they are. There's lots of different Zelda games out there, so go check them out. But on the topic of anniversaries, there's another franchise that's celebrating a big anniversary this year as well, and that is Pokemon. So the 20th anniversary of the Japanese release of the original Pokemon games. And they even did a Super Bowl TV spot and everything, which is pretty crazy. And they're doing a whole bunch of different things to celebrate the anniversary, but what I want to focus on is what was talked about in the recent Pokemon Direct. Essentially, first of all, they re-released the original games, Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow, and in Japan, green version, on the eShop, so you can download those now. They are, I believe, $10 each. And what's interesting is you can transfer those games to the Pokemon Bank app, which can then be transferred to the next little piece, which is the new Pokemon games, Pokemon Sun and Pokemon Moon. So those games will be coming out holiday 2016 for the 3DS. We don't really know much about it, except they're adding traditional and simplified Chinese languages to the game. We saw like a little snippet of what one of the new Pokemon looks like a little bird Pokemon kind of. And really, we have the logos. That's pretty much it. We really don't know much about the games, except they're coming this holiday. So I kind of wanted to once again kind of go around and talk about maybe a little bit about our thoughts on the announcement and then also the franchise in general. So, Steve, any thoughts on Pokemon?
I liked the trailer leading up to the announcement of Sun and Moon a lot better than I liked the one that they put out for the Super Bowl. I think that one, it kind of captured, like, I think I got what they were going for. They were going for, the nostalgia and like, oh, you can catch Pokemon too or whatever. But I thought the video that they did at the Pokemon Direct that actually showed people playing the game and everything through the years was a lot cooler, I guess, because it really captured the history of the game and where it's come from and where it's going. Myself, I've only dabbled into Pokemon. I was into it when it first came out. I remember getting I think that was back when Nintendo used to send out VHS tapes advertising what's going to come out. I remember getting the Donkey Kong Country one as well. But I remember watching the VHS tape and it saying like, this is some new franchise that's going to come. We're going to have a TV show and all this other stuff, and they were showing how it's going to be, the next big. They wanted it to be the next big thing, and it was really interesting when Nintendo sets their mind to it, and they say, this is going to be something big. It usually is, and that's what I remember hearing from them in their advertising and everything. They're like, we want this to be something huge. And it's only become something huge, I think, because of that mindset that they had from the very beginning. And yeah, it's been it's blown up. It's been huge. I got Blue at the very beginning, back on my Game Boy, and played through it. I don't know if I ever actually beat the entire game. I know I didn't come close to getting all 151 Pokemon. I think I was probably somewhere in the neighborhood of like 70 or 80 or something like that. But I remember even trading with other people, and that was pretty cool because you did still like connect your link cables and everything up. I remember pre-ordering yellow version from my local Kmart because I was like, this is awesome. I gotta get Pikachu edition. And then I realized that I probably don't really have the money for that, and I probably shouldn't be buying it. So I remember actually I sold my pre-order to like a friend, so I never got that version. And actually, that was the only version of Pokemon I had until Soul Silver and Heart Gold came out, and I ended up getting Soul Silver. Played through that game, loved it, and I think I ended up, I can't remember if I don't think I got Black or White, or Black or White 2, but I did get X for like. Yeah, I had X and Y actually. We had like a couple different. I didn't buy it. We got extra review copies from Nintendo, and that was the only really reason I got that because Pokemon games are really one of the it's a huge adventure, and so like limited time, and so we're all getting older. We have a lot less time to dive into these gigantic adventures, and so I played through maybe I think 2 of the I'm totally blanking right now. Yeah, the gyms. 2 of the gyms so far, but I think that's about all. So I haven't really even dived too far into X. So I'm excited to see.
Is that what
yeah. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see where it goes in the future. I haven't decided yet if I'll actually get Sun or Moon. We'll see. I think it'd be cool to really. I think hopefully they jump all the way in on the 3D this time. Because like with X and Y, I think it was kind of this hybrid sort of thing, and it wasn't like fully into 3D. So it'd be really cool if if they jump all the way in this time.
Yeah, definitely. What about you, Greg?
I kind of hate to admit this, but I've actually never played a Pokemon game. I feel like my childhood is not as good as anyone else. My first experience with Pokemon was in Super Smash Bros. 64 when a character called Pikachu made an appearance. That's probably my homework assignment is to download one of those games and give it a shot.
Now you guys know how I feel when I say I haven't played Fire Emblem games, and now you see how that feels.
Yeah, I haven't played one of those either.
Oh man.
So obviously it's great that it's lasted this long, and it seems like it has a huge fan base. I've just never played one of the games in any of the games. So I guess I'll have to go out and download whatever. If we do a top Pokemon game, which game should I start with?
That's a tough one there. Could always go old school and just get the Virtual Console titles like Red, Blue, and Yellow or something.
Go for Blue. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I started with too.
I really want to play it again. I want to download it, but I'm like $10 for a game I already own.
I think it's actually only like $7 or $8.99. I posted that in our Nintendo download. It's not 10 even, but it's like 7 or 8 or something like that.
Yeah, but there's still tax.
Not in New Hampshire.
Oh yeah, live free or die.
So it's like $9, still not 10. One less.
Yeah. What about you, Barry?
Like Steve, I mean, I remember being at my friend's house and talking about it, and like, oh, it sounds like so cool, it's coming out, and the anime came on at 6 o'clock in the morning. I was up every morning to watch the anime, and I was talking to another friend, and we were both excited. And when the game came out, I remember literally running to his house because I didn't have a car, and I was still a kid. and ran over to his house, and his mom took us to Toys R Us, and I got blue and he got red. And I was like, oh, we're totally going to start playing. And we started playing. Every day in school we were talking about it. And I got ahead of him. I was so excited with it. And I remember beating the Elite Four and beating everything and catching, Articuno and Mewtwo and Zapdos and Moltres. And I'm like, okay, I'm done. Like, I don't need all 150. I got the legendaries. And I remember him kept asking me every day, what's your team? What's your team? Oh, yeah, this is what I got. I'm done. And all of a sudden, him and like 3 other friends one day after school, like, we got to totally battle. And not only did they have the same Pokemon, they had beaten, but they were like level 100, and they just wiped the floor with me. I'm like, what the heck? Like, what the heck's going on? So I'm like, oh man, you guys are too competitive in this. But I did gold. I did gold. I did Ruby. In fact, I actually bought a Game Boy Advance for Ruby, but I never finished it, and I didn't do the Leaf Green or anything like that. I didn't get back into it until Pearl. I got Pearl, didn't beat it. Didn't play Soul Silver or Gold or Heart Gold. Didn't play Black or White, and then I found out my wife had never played a Pokemon game, so I wound up getting Black 2 and White 2 when they came out for her to play. She didn't have the time to play. I didn't have the motivation to play without battling her. So it wasn't until X and Y that she finally started playing, and I beat X. I beat Y. I'm sorry, I beat Y, and I haven't even touched Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire yet, and I probably will get Sun and Moon. Maybe I'll, depending, I hope they go full 3D like you were talking about, Steve. Then I'll be for it. Still waiting for that Pokemon MMO. Been dying for that since the beginning, since I first saw the first episode. Catching that Pidgey, got to go for it. I've done most of the spin-offs, Snap and Stadium, and I'm still playing Shuffle to this day, and Picross. So they still got a hold of me there. And Steve, as for your VHS, is this the one you're talking about? Because this is the one I got.
It's somewhere in my parents' house, I'm pretty sure.
There it is. That's. I did the same thing. I got it. I was like, oh my god, I can't wait to watch this. Because the game hadn't come out yet, and it was the only thing we had. But to me, I hope it goes on for forever. Like you, Steve, as well. I think the trailer was way better than the Super Bowl commercial, and I almost wish they just aired that trailer in the Super Bowl and announced Sun and Moon at the Super Bowl. And like just totally, whoa, we know there was a commercial, but in the game announcement at the Super Bowl, this would be totally different. And I agree. I think it was definitely a better commercial. But Pokemon has been a big part of my life. Not as big as other people. Not as big as Zelda, of course. I know it's touched a lot of other people, in really, really good ways. And the card game, I see people all over like going crazy for these new legendary packs now, and the stuffed dolls, the Mew doll and the Pikachu, and like people all over. Oh my god, I got it! And to see that love, like going into Toys R Us and seeing kids carrying these toys now, like it warms my heart. It's like I'm glad that this is still going on and kids can enjoy what we enjoyed growing up. Because the world changes so much, and it's nice to see some things still stay the same.
Yeah, no, that's definitely very true. Before I go into my thoughts in the chat, Mike was saying, by the way, it's $9.99 the games, he said. So Greg is technically correct because it's 1 cent less than $10. He said it's $12.49 in Canada. His first major Pokemon experience was Pokemon Gold. And yeah. Richard Romero in the chat says he's still waiting for Pokemon Snap 2. Even though the Wii U is perfect for it. Oh, that totally
Pikachu
would have been... Yeah, right?
Too.
That would have been amazing. So, for me, Pokemon... honestly might even be a bigger franchise like for me growing up than Zelda and even Mario and stuff. Pokemon was one of my very first video games ever. I honestly can't remember if I got a Game Boy Color or Nintendo 64 first, but those were like my first systems. And for Game Boy Color, my first 2 games were Frogger and Pokemon Blue. I remember deciding, I was like, I've heard Pokemon Red is harder, so I'm going with Blue version or something, and Blue is my favorite color, so I ended up picking that randomly. But I got Blue, I got Gold, Ruby, Diamond, White version. Oh, and then with all the re-releases, I got Leaf Green, Soul Silver, got Pokemon X, Omega Ruby. Yeah, I've got a whole bunch, and a bunch of the spin-offs and stuff too. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, Explorers of Time, Darkness, and Sky, I think is the third one. That will probably be one of my favorite. Like, that story is probably one of my favorite games, like, ever, really. And I actually even, like, teared up in the story. Like, I never thought a Pokemon game would make me tear up from the story. Like, it was actually really good. And just lots of memories of just growing up, especially with my sisters at the time when they were more into gaming. They would watch the show and stuff, too. We all collected the cards. That was huge. I have a ton of Pokemon cards. I still have them there. And I actually almost bought some, like, on Sunday. I was at the store, and I was like, maybe. Like, it was kind of pulling me back in. But so many great memories. I even got to go to the Pokemon World Championships a year or two ago because they were in D.C. So it was just a cool experience going there and just seeing the competitive scene, and with the card game, the video game, everything. It was just an awesome experience overall. So it's just been really cool to see that franchise really grow over the years and become what it is. Definitely.
Yeah, I think the competitive scene is the most interesting to me because I never imagined it would become what it is today. I mean, I remember, like, I can't remember if it was Barry. I think you mentioned about how you had friends that were asking, like what team you had and everything, and like your different types of teams. And I remember the first time I was asked that question, like, "Oh, what's your different?" I'm like, "What are you talking about? Why would I have different types? I have the team that I set up, that I play from the very beginning. I keep the best ones. Why would anybody like?" And then I find out like you have different sets that you play against different players with, and they all, because it's a whole, like rock paper scissors thing, and like learning that over time is just like insane because like I had no clue at the beginning. I just picked my favorites and just leveled them up as much as I could and just kept on going. But then everybody's like farming and evolving them and growing other Pokemon and breeding them and all this stuff that goes over time and just making like the best teams they can and different types of teams. I was just like, that's way too much for me. I just wanted to progress through the game and beat all the matches that I could and just like collect as many as I could and call it a day. But it's gotten so huge like in the competitive scene because people have really gone out on both the card game side and the full video game side. So that's been insane for me to see. But I think I'm most excited about Pokken Tournament coming out, honestly. Like that's kind of my like, if I'm gonna be like, I'm definitely not a competitive fighter game person at all, but I really enjoy it, and I really enjoy like Tekken and Street Fighter, and so like that with Pokemon, like this could be really fun. I probably will get killed by really competitive players, but it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Now, see, what I'm wondering is why everybody is ignoring the giant elephant in the room. See, what Nintendo did was subliminally tell us that they are actually going to buy Mega Man because Pokemon Sun and Blue is a reference to Mega Man Battle Network 4, Red Sun and Blue Moon. So it's like Sun Moon. Yeah. That's what they're doing here, right? Come on, Nintendo, please.
I see a little Mega Man behind you, like, ready. He's like... please, save him.
There he is. He's sneaking in.
Richard Romero in the chat says that he suggested that I collect a Generations set that was just released. I'm currently collecting them, first time since I was a kid buying packs again. I think I remember hearing the Generations set is like the card game. They're re-releasing some of the cards or something from older series or something, so it's kind of interesting.
That's what I heard too.
So that kind of wraps things up for the Pokemon topic for today for the anniversary. So two big franchises, two big anniversaries for Zelda, Pokemon, and lots of great stuff there. But now, we're going to look ahead to the future, and we have some rumors to talk about with the future Nintendo console, handheld, both, neither, whatever it is, the Nintendo NX.
Actually, like, as a transition for this, like, that's one of the things that I was a bit shocked to hear is when they announced that the next Pokemon game would be out for the 3DS. Because I actually thought they probably would, like, if this is going to be some sort of like hybrid thing, I thought it would be out for the NX or whatever. I was kind of interested and intrigued that they announced that it is coming out for 3DS.
Steve, don't you remember the 3DS came out in March 2011 and Black 2 and White 2 came out later that year on the DS? So they did it there too. And Pokemon Conquest also, all 3 games came out for the DS before the 3DS even got X and Y. And that was the year that the 3DS needed a Pokemon game. Like, it was hurting so badly in 2011. And it was a big question, why the hell is White 2 and Black 2 on DS, not 3DS? So it doesn't surprise me.
Which is why I'm shocked, because if it is definitely coming out when they learn their lesson, and plus, like, if they really want to push this, like if it really is coming out in late 2016 or even early 2017, and they really want to push it, like, why wouldn't they hold off on brand new, exciting, huge games like new Pokemon for this next system and like really push it as a launch title or something instead? But
Steve, you should know, Nintendo is a creature of habit. They don't learn from their mistakes. They keep repeating this. We're going to stop the drought. We're going to stop the drought. How many times have we heard that? And how many droughts have we been in since they started saying it? That's what they do. You know, would it be smart? Absolutely. They're probably looking at the game's probably been in development since X and Y finished, because I'm sure it was a smaller team that did Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire because it was just reusing the engine. So they probably have been in development of this game for like 3 years, and they don't know what the NX is 3 years ago, so they have it in development. Will it get a port? Possible, but probably not. And the other thing is the 3DS has a large install base, and this will have nothing. So their idea is probably, let's reach the largest install base and keep the 3DS going as long as it can. Because what I've heard, this is a DS all over again. Remember when the DS came out, they swore up and down that the Game Boy line wasn't going to die, and this was going to be a third pillar, just like the Virtual Boy was a third pillar before that. And they can't keep a third pillar. So we know something's going to give, and obviously the 3DS is most likely going to give. But they don't want to tell you that. They want this Christmas for you to go out and buy a 3DS if you don't have one yet. So that's why they're doing it. They're doing it for the latecomers.
Yeah. Yeah, we've learned from Nintendo over the years that don't expect them to be ready to go with new hardware and all the software, definitely. But looking ahead with the NX, there are rumors of what they could possibly have coming with the system. So
before you say the rumors, I do have something to say. I have not read these rumors. I have purposely avoided every article about these rumors. So I have no idea what you're going to say, because I can this direct and be surprised, as opposed to, oh, that came true. So I have no idea what you're going to say here. So if you're watching and you see my face go, it's a legit, oh my God, like, is that real or not? But
yeah, I've only read just a couple of them. The couple that I've read, like, were the ones that I was like, oh, well, I don't even. That's just someone speculating, and it's a obvious speculation. So I haven't read any like outlandish rumors yet. So I'm not exactly sure what you're about to say, Hassan, either. But yeah, I'm excited. Let's see what people have to say.
All right, so I've picked 3 rumors for us to talk about, starting with the smallest to the biggest rumor, basically. I guess you could almost say the most likely to the least likely. So the first rumor comes from on Twitter. There's this guy Serkan Toto, Dr. Serkan Toto. He's a CEO of Tokyo-based consultancy company Canton Games. He often tweets different pieces of data on like the Japanese gaming market, things like that. He seems to have some inside sources. He seems to at least know some of what he's talking about. Whether he really knows the stuff or not, I don't know, but he seems to be pretty reliable. So he tweeted saying, Bandai Namco is currently developing several NX titles. Smash Bros. Is planned to be a launch title. I'm not sure about the date yet. To follow up on my last tweet, I haven't heard if it's a completely new numbered Smash Bros. Or not. Otherwise, source situation is solid. So he's claiming there's going to be a Smash Bros. Game at NX launch or soon after, I guess, which many people are kind of taking it to mean maybe a Smash Brothers Wii U 3DS combined, all DLC included kind of a thing, like a Game of the Year edition sort of thing. I don't think anybody expects like a full new Smash Brothers, but I could see that happening. I think it's easy enough for them to be able to port over to a new system, and it'll have plenty of content to include the DLC. Maybe combine the Wii U and 3DS exclusive stages, combine that into the game as well. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, it had been rumored anyhow that this was possibly going to happen, and it kind of makes sense. It'd be interesting actually, because if we are continuing to make another Smash Brothers game down the line, it'd be one of the first console, the first console that ever have two versions on it. But it makes sense. I mean, it's not that old of a game, and it's still very well played. And it would make sense to just kind of like port it over. Up-res everything, throw in all the DLC, and call it a Game of the Year edition or special edition or NX whatever. It'd be really cool if they somehow tied it in. Like I don't think they would, because the Nintendo network sucks. But if they were able to like tie it into, be able to play with the Wii U version or something like that. But I doubt that they would do that. But yeah. Makes sense to me. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened.
Right. What do you guys think, Greg, Barry?
Yeah, I also kind of think that would kind of make sense. I mean, they seem to have a habit of doing that. Like Twilight Princess came on two consoles, and obviously the Wii U launched with a lot of games that were made like 6 months before on like Xbox and PlayStation. So I don't see why they would just take a great game like Smash Brothers and use it as a launch title. But personally, I'd rather it be a brand new title from the ground up. But obviously, if they need a launch title to help sell the game, then that's what they'll do.
See, this is one I've heard, and I've thought a lot about it. In terms of making a brand new Smash Brothers game, there hasn't really been a lot of time. And there is no reason to. And the reason I say that is they have a great framework with Smash Brothers Wii U 3DS, and almost like what they're touting with the NX, like it's going to be a platform. It's almost like Smash Brothers is a platform itself. They already have an existing formula. There's no reason to redraw Mario and redo his moves again. He's there. He exists. He's going to be in the game. They could take all the existing characters. They could take all the existing stages from both 3DS and Wii U. Maybe even surprise us by porting over the older ones. I'm sure Sakurai doesn't need to be there for that. Employees can do that pretty easily. And then Sakurai stated that there were no more characters, and this is the end for Smash Brothers for Wii U and 3DS, and he specifically stated that. Why is there no more? Because if they just launch with Smash Brothers with all the DLC, it'll be great. Nintendo diehards like us will probably buy it. People who never owned a Wii U will probably get the NX for it. But those that already have it will be like, I'm not buying again. Oh, but wait, now it comes with exclusive characters. Let's get Ice Climbers here, and Inkling here, and Shantae in here, and King K. Rool, and who knows what are the third parties, characters. Suddenly we have like Chris Redfield from Resident Evil coming in, and as crazy as they want to make it, they have the opportunity now because they don't need to focus on retouting Mario and working on Link and all that stuff because they already exist. The odds of them making a brand new game at this point, not going to happen because Sakurai puts himself into almost deathbed every time he makes a Smash Brothers game, and the guy needs a break. Because let him work on a couple characters. They do what, 4 or 5 characters a year? If they do 4 or 5 characters this year, let's say 4 characters this year, and it launches in early 2017, they could do another 2 or 3. They could launch with another 7 characters and future DLC. It would, like, the timeline would work, as opposed to building a brand new game. It would be like Street Fighter V. Street Fighter 4 had like 50 characters by the end of it, and Street Fighter V launched with 16 because they had to rework all the characters. No one's going to want a Smash Brothers game with 16 characters after the Wii U version and the 3DS with 58 characters, was it? Counting the Mii fighters as 3. You're not going to want that. You're going to want more characters, if anything else.
Yeah, I was just talking to someone there just the other day, and we were just talking about how, because they went back and played Melee recently, and they were like, man, it's so difficult after being used to the 3DS and Wii U version, and we were talking about how really it in a big way that that it really is the like it feels like the final version of Smash Brothers. It feels like the way Smash Brothers should be, and they can still tweak it. They can still rebalance everything with patches and stuff like that over time, and they can still add DLC with characters and stuff. And if they up-res it, when they port it over to NX, put it over to 4K, that's not that much difficult to do if you're just tweaking the graphics, because the game engine itself is already there and it's fantastic already. So yeah, just keep building on it. It's kind of like why I feel like I don't understand why EA, because they're money hungry, but other than that, why they keep putting out a brand new version of FIFA and Madden and NBA Live and everything every year. Really, they just need to release a really good one, and then just release the new patches with the new updated rosters every year, and charge a subscription for that or something. I think it's similar. Once you get to a certain point, like I think Smash Brothers has, really they've built the definitive version of Smash Brothers, in my opinion, and let's just build upon that over time.
The reason that EA does it is money. It's people actually go out and buy 4 million, 8 million units of Madden every year, and it's easy money because it's just updating roster and a little few tweaks. So EA likes money, like any company, Nintendo included. So it's just easy 8 million in sales. What they could do for Smash, though, is just call it Super Smash Bros. Turbo, like Street Fighter did, and just put a slider meter for the Melee people to be happy. Like, up the speed, boom, done.
You got to be able to turn on different glitches as well.
Oh, yeah.
Wave dashing.
Yeah. Right. So, I mean, it seems like it's definitely within the realm of possibility. So, that's why I say this is probably the most likely out of the three rumors that I have there. Whether it'll happen or not remains to be seen. But it seems like it's definitely a certain possibility. So that brings us to rumor number 2, and I'll give a little bit of background to this one. This one's probably been the one that's been floating around the most lately. So there's a user on the NeoGAF forum, username by Trevelyan9999. And essentially he claimed that he had a contact at Nintendo that had some information, and he shared it. And I should say that some of what he shared has since kind of been proven a little bit. So he shared some release information, so kind of moving a little bit away from NX, but he shared like a 3DS lineup, some marketing stuff, marketing budgets. So he mentioned about more Nintendo Selects would be coming, which was just announced. He mentioned something about Disney Art Academy, which then like a day or two later there was a retailer listing for that. He mentioned a new Pokemon game codenamed Niji, which translates to Rainbow. And actually some of the press images for Pokemon Sun and Moon, the logo images for the game files, the file names were Niji A logo and Niji V logo. So it seems like some of what he's saying is coming true. So that brings us to the NX piece. And what he said is that the NX will indeed launch this year. At least, his source didn't know if it's specifically a console or handheld or what, but at least one part of it, or in some way, shape, or form, the NX would launch this year. As well as a new Legend of Zelda game for NX would be a launch window title, which many are taking to be, I don't know if he outright said it or if many people are just assuming it'll be Zelda Wii U, also on NX, kind of like a Twilight Princess GameCube Wii situation. So his rumor is about NX definitely coming this year, and Zelda being an NX launch title, so possibly Zelda Wii U then probably, I guess, would be the NX title. Oh, actually, I'm looking at his post now. Yeah, he specifically says Zelda Wii U will be the one that would be on NX as well. So that's that. What do you guys think about that?
I think if it does come out in 2016, it better launch with Zelda. That's what I'm saying, because we've been waiting on this so long. They better have put it off for a good reason. And if that reason is to also port it over to a new system that does 4K and has a lot more power, then okay. But if they've just been putting it off and they just release it at on the Wii U at the very last, month of its life cycle before they launch a brand new system, then okay, whatever. But it just makes sense, I guess, for them to pull, Twilight Princess again. We've talked about that a lot. If it comes out in 2016, I don't know. I think it makes sense, especially if all the rumors that, and I don't know what your top one that you're going to share, but if the rumors are true that it's only going to be as powerful as the PS4 and the Xbox One, then it better come out this year, because we better not get a brand new system from Nintendo in 2017 that's just as powerful as a system that is now 3 years old. They better be matching it in 2016. I still hope they surpass it in 2016, because I think the technology is now there that we can surpass it. But or do something brand new or something, I don't know, VR or whatever. But it's gotta surpass that. And so if it does launch in 2016, I could see, definitely, a Zelda title coming with it, especially this late in the game of Zelda Wii U. I mean, why not port it over and try to help sales in the beginning?
Right.
I was kind of going to go the route that it probably is not going to be launching this year, only because it seems like when they announced the Wii, it was like a year and a half afterwards. When they announced the Wii U, it was like a year and a half afterwards. I'm not convinced that it will be in any form this year, but that's just kind of me. I think we'll hear more at E3. If we were to see it this year, I would expect some sort of press conference within the next month or two. I don't think they could announce it at E3 and be like, oh, by the way, it's available in 3 months. I don't see that being a super wise move, but who really knows? I mean, they could try that route, but I would think you would need to build up some excitement and hype, and you probably want to keep that going for a period of time as you trickle out additional news and games that are going to be launching with it and coming out shortly after.
Although, I mean, I like the idea of them announcing it, and in a short time, just a few months later that it does release. I think that does create a lot more excitement, actually, because sometimes when people have, we see it a lot in the movies, especially lately. We see a trailer for a trailer, and then by the time the movie comes out, you're like, didn't it come out already? Because I've been hearing about this movie for the last 2 years. So we draw things out so much nowadays, and I think some of the excitement is lost. So if they were to announce it at E3 and say, yeah, it's going to be available 6 months later or something like that, I think, to me, that would draw more excitement, because they can just pack all the advertising they can into a short amount of time, really build some hype, and just launch it out and see how it does. I don't know if they will or not, but in my mind, actually, I prefer a shorter launch window from the announcement into launch.
I mean, I'm just trying to use the previous examples. I mean, with Wii and Wii U, it seemed like they needed a whole press conference just to introduce the console. Then they didn't really go into about any of the games that were going to really be coming. It was the E3 afterwards. It's oh, that new console we talked about last year. Well, boom, here's Nintendo Land. Boom, here's Wii Fit U. Here's Wii Music. I mean, it's whatever. Wii Sports.
Yeah. I guess with that too, though, there were a lot of issues with that, where there's a lot of confusion by splitting up stuff too. So maybe by just doing it all at once, they kind of get it out the way. Or at least I see that Nintendo lately has really been kind of waiting until the last minute on a lot of things. They just really haven't talked much about games coming out until pretty close to them actually coming out. It seems like they kind of have really been holding things close to their chest a lot lately. So I kind of am starting to think that the NX will come out this year, at least one part of it. I'm still thinking that it's going to be in two forms, a console and handheld, and the games will kind of work with both, that sort of thing. So at least one part of it, I think, will probably come out this year. But I don't know. I guess it's we'll have to wait and see.
I mean, I'm on board with that as well with the two separate pieces. I think like we saw Yoshi's Woolly World like over 2 years before it launched, and we saw the Fire Emblem and Shimigami Tensei, and that we still don't even have a launch date for that one.
Right.
It just seems like they announce these games like over a year in advance. I mean, even Skyward Sword had some massive delays, like the Zelda Wii U game is going through. I mean, they're trying to be optimistic, like, oh, it's coming this time, and then as soon as it creeps up on, like, you know what, we need another year to do this, and oh, we need another year to do this. It's just always the same thing.
Right. What are your thoughts, Barry, on the 2016 release?
I was just listening to you guys. First thing I had to chuckle about was Steve mentioned advertising and Nintendo in the same topic. That's just hilarious because Nintendo probably won't do that.
No, they can though. Will they? I don't know.
They won't.
They obviously can. They marketed the heck out of the Wii, and what happened? It's crazy.
They'd rather advertise Pokemon at the Super Bowl than a brand new console, right?
Yeah. Well, see, here's what I think they need to do. I'm not a businessman, but I have enough business sense to try to analyze, and I have been doing this for a while. Nintendo's in a very tough situation, and the reason I say that is they're launching a system in between. And they're getting a jump on their competitors, but at the same time, they're lagging behind by doing this. And like I know, I think Phil Spencer just stated like Xbox One is like their last system. Like they're just gonna keep updating it, and they're not gonna have console generations anymore. And if that's the case, then Nintendo might be in good shape. But what they don't want to do is alienate Wii U owners and 3DS owners. And I know it's impossible to do that. The reason I say that is I see people, to this day, like, oh, I just finally got a 3DS, and what do you mean another console's coming? And it's like, 3DS is 5 years old. You have a backlog of 5 years worth of great games. Like, you shouldn't feel cheated. You have a ton of games to play. You should not feel cheated. And the same with the Wii U. Oh, I just got a Wii U. What the heck? It's like, you've got 4 years worth of great Wii U titles. Pick them up and play them. If you're jumping into a console this late in the game, you should never feel cheated because you get to experience all those great games with no droughts, like, at all, because they're all out there already for you. So, but at the same time, people will still feel alienated, and they've got to be careful. Hence, when we were talking about Pokemon, the reason Pokemon Black 2 and White 2, one of the reasons it came out for the DS, one of the reasons Sun and Moon will come out for the 3DS this holiday, because a 2016 launch, it's possible. If it does come out, it has to be only a handheld. And the reason I say that is the 3DS is now 5 years old, and if their home console can do all these great things, they're going to need to announce it. And they can't pull a Sega Saturn because we know what happens there. You're going to shoot yourself in the foot. You need time. Developers need time, especially third parties. Third parties are so important, and Nintendo's lacked that. Third parties need time to develop these games for the NX. They need time to have it ready, and they can't just launch with lackluster titles. They did it with the Wii U. They did it with the 3DS, and both were horrible launches. Not saying everybody's done it perfectly. The PS4 launch, the Xbox One launch, and the Vita launches were all just equally abysmal, in my opinion. But they need to be smart about it. One of the things they could do is do a Wii U lineup. Because if the rumors are to be believed, there won't be an optical disc drive in the NX. It will just be cards, much like the 3DS, making a portable home console work. And I can see that happening. But if that's the case, that means there's no more backwards compatibility, meaning people who buy a Wii U now, their system or their games will only work on the Wii U. They will not continue on. And Nintendo is known for backwards compatibility. So they would have to do something with this, My Nintendo, where you register New Super Mario Brothers U, and you can get at a discount an NX version of New Super Mario Brothers U and now play it. You can now get an NX version of Mario Kart 8 with all the DLC. You can get an NX version of Hyrule Warriors and Bayonetta 1 and 2 combo, and like just Captain Toad and Yoshi's Woolly World. And they'll start releasing these NX titles or Wii U titles for the NX, really easy to convert for. Just change out the gamepad and at least alleviate that drought a little bit. Kind of like what they did with the 3DS launch with Ocarina of Time 3D and Star Fox 64 3D. These weren't new games; these were just updated old ones, and that's an easy way to do it. But I do see the handheld possibly coming out this holiday, no earlier than that, or they pull the Sega Saturn, and they have to talk about it at E3 or before E3. If we don't hear anything at E3, then there's nothing coming out this year, because that would be stupid. And if they were smart, they would do a live show this E3 and not a direct, because there are so many companies that are going to be at E3, like Time and New York Times and People and all these places that cover games that one time of the year. They want as much exposure as you can get. So if it costs them, let's say it costs them $150,000 to rent out the place for an hour and a half conference, that $150,000 would be a wise investment for the exposure you're going to get. The Nintendo Directs, while they've been great, they reach a limited audience. They reach the Nintendo fans. They reach the games journalists, which are getting less and less now with sites like Game Trailers closing, and that's it. And sometimes they crash, like we've had before with E3s, where it doesn't work, and that's a disaster too. So you could, and yes, you could reach millions of people online, but sites like IGN and GameSpot, they're still going to be streaming E3, so you're still going to get that exposure, but you're going to get more because New York Times is going to write an article, about in the tech section, and people who aren't hip on games are going to read that and go, wow, that's a really cool idea. Maybe my grandson would like that this holiday, and boom, you've got a sale. That's what they need to do, and if they don't do that, I think they're shooting themselves in the foot. It's just a wise investment.
Yeah, and when you also get the live reaction to the announcements as well. I remember a couple years ago when I was at E3, I think it was one of the first years that they did the Nintendo Direct, the E3 presentation or whatever, just the online streaming for Nintendo. But I also went over to Sony's live event, and it was there was a level of excitement and energy in the room that you just can't get when you do an online only thing. I was able to hear everybody cheering when their favorite game was announced and all that stuff, and you don't get that excitement, which it adds to the hype in it. And people like these non-game journalists that are covering the event, that's going to build upon how they write about particular games and how they write about these particular announcements. When they say, wow, the room just lit up when this was announced, that plays into it, and they need that as well. I like what you were saying about backwards compatibility. I think that's going to be huge. I would love it, actually, if they did continue the backwards compatibility. I think that's one of the big things that does help with, especially in our modern mobile age, our smartphone and tablet age, where we have iPads that come out brand new every year. We have iPhones that come out brand new every year, and people, while they're kind of bummed that like, wow, I just got the last one, a new one just came out, they're okay with that, and they can hold on to it a little longer, and people are usually upgrading every 2 years and everything, and they're okay with that even though it's more expensive, because everything's backward compatible. And I think that does help play into it, because I get a brand new iPhone, I got to pay the money to get the new iPhone, but at the same time, I know all the games and apps that I've downloaded on it will download brand new on the new one and still work. And I think any level of backward compatibility that they can put into it is going to be a huge benefit for them.
Just imagine if the NX home console actually does contain an optical drive, but it's just for Wii and Wii U games, then it literally would be a Retron 5. A Wii, Wii U, the 3DS, DS, and NX games all at once. And then you would be able to take your DS
some
games
Sega
and 3DS
games and
Virtual console, that's a whole nother topic. Let's not go into Virtual console. They've dropped the ball there big time. But imagine being able to take your DS games and pop it in there, and suddenly now you can play games like Ghost Trick on the TV. Legit. I mean, that'd be great. No
Yeah.
hookups or anything like that. Just pop it in.
That we'll see what they do with backwards compatibility with Wii U. But one of the visions I have, I guess, for what the NX could be is it's kind of like what Steve was saying with the iPhones and that sort of thing, where maybe every 2 years or so there's a new version or something released, kind of like what they have the new 3DS and that sort of thing. But continuing that long term and making the NX truly a platform, as Nintendo's they've really been emphasizing that word, how NX is a platform. So whether console or handheld, releasing iterations of these devices to kind of slowly bring more constant improvements to the hardware rather than having to wait however many years and do that sort of thing. But I don't know how that falls in line with some of these rumors and stuff, but that's just something that I've thought about as maybe a model they might be transitioning towards or something. So.
Oh yeah, I didn't talk about Zelda quickly. If they're smart, pack-in game. Zelda Wii U NX version pack-in with the handheld. Boom, million sales, easily multi-million sales.
Make it the only way you can get it.
Or at least for the first year. The first year, yes. When the home console comes out, then it releases separately.
Yeah. So we'll see. So kind of moving into a little crazier rumors and stuff now. So that one may or may not be true. There's a couple things that source had true. A couple things remain to be seen. We'll see. Brings us to the third rumor I want to discuss. It's from the website Dual Pixels, and they have a source that they name Gino. And so they claim that this source, Gino, has kind of revealed a couple of things in the past. I haven't gotten a chance to really do research to see if this is true or not, but they claim that Gino said Nintendo would release a Pokemon game that used a full 3D engine, which was Pokemon X and Y. Said there'd be a new type of Pokemon, which was the Fairy type. Older Pokemon would get new abilities like Mewtwo. I'm told a couple other things about PlayStation, Microsoft stuff, like about Microsoft introducing an Omni projection unit that would let game environments be projected in a near 360-degree fashion around the user, which is that Illuma Room thing that they had.
HoloGlass, they're called now. HoloLens. Was it?
So I don't know if this is if that source really did say all this stuff ahead of time. I don't know, but they're claiming to have some information on the NX, and what they're saying is, let's see. There's a couple bullet points here. First of all, they say that it has a wireless HDMI dongle that attaches flush to the back of the device. A user can pull it out and insert it into any display with a normal-sized HDMI output, and the devices use an evolved version of the Wii U streaming tech to display in HD to the TV screen. I'm not 100% sure what that means, but that sounds to me like it's a handheld, but it has a dongle that lets you display the stuff on the TV, kind of making it a hybrid of sorts.
Chromecast.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like a Chromecast kind of idea.
Yeah, so that's one part, and then they say that allegedly the analog controls for movement have small motors in them for full haptic feedback. So if you control a character and you hit a wall, the sticks move away from the direction of the wall to simulate running headfirst into it. This can also be used for jerking when firing a gun, taking damage, moving over rough terrain, etc. Third bullet point, it can literally Bluetooth sync with everything, especially smartphones and tablets, to the point where one feature is it can answer phone calls and display text messages from your phone onto the screens itself, so you don't have to stop and answer your smart device.
Yep, I turned it off first day.
The fourth bullet point is the closest in terms of power it gets to is the Xbox One, but an app idea is Wii U times 50 and PlayStation Vita times 100. I don't know what that means. The key is that all the tech is exactly the same hardware layout as PS4 and Xbox One, which combines it with the OS's strong emulation functions and compiler, which means that any game that can run on a PS4 or Xbox One can easily run on the NX with near zero modification to the original source code, especially if it runs in Android OS or Unreal Engine 4. This is allegedly why Nintendo has given out the dev kit so late, as one third-party dev put it. It's the easiest device we've ever developed for. You just take your code, compile it, and it works. And then the fifth bullet point is look to Pokemon Go to get the idea of the type of social features that will be in NX that will take multiplayer AR and the Street Pass concept to a whole new level. It looks like there's another thing they didn't label a bullet point. So the 6th point is the real strength of the device is usability and ease of use. It visually and functionally looks as if Samsung and the 2DS had a baby. The operating system is named the Nintendo OS, or like the O from Nintendo is an OS. It's very powerful, modern features and mobile operating systems. Nintendo's being careful and showing it off because they don't want people to mistake it as running Android, strong networking functions, etc. So, me personally, I don't know if I believe this or not. I feel like as I keep reading, it gets more unbelievable. Especially the whole part about how easy it is to compile the source code from other systems onto this. Usually when I see that stuff, that kind of is like a flag to me, as like that's like a pipe dream for a Nintendo fan. Like, oh, you just port the games and it's one line of code and that's it. In the real world, that's not how it works.
No. Well, I remember even
Yeah.
when Windows Phone 10 came out and they were saying, oh yeah, like you could take all your Android apps and your iPhone apps and be able to, run them through our system, port them out, pop them out, overnight, and all of a sudden you'll have all these brand new Windows Phone 10 apps and everything. And then when developers got their hands on it, they're like, it's not nearly as easy as you'd make it sound. And so I wonder, ideally this would be fantastic, but yeah, reality is a different thing.
Yeah.
Greg, any thoughts on?
Yeah. Well, when it gets to the point about like linking with like smartphones and stuff, like that doesn't sound like something that Nintendo would directly do. I mean, usually they don't try to merge in the entertainment aspects that we've seen with no DVD player, no anything like that with our consoles. So being able to like stream it to another device seems completely foreign, and was kind of surprised that they would be including something like that. So we all know that Nintendo likes their own private software and their own proprietary means of access and games and all that. So I don't know, that part was kind of reaching a little bit for me, at least.
Yeah, that part I actually almost thought kind of sounded like something Nintendo might do in a way. In terms of, if you look at the gamepad and how they didn't want to disrupt, the typical viewing experience that you're watching a TV and you have something coming on. Well, just swap to the gamepad. You can watch TV and play your game. So you have your phones and your tablets. Instead of having to use those devices, just put those to the side and you'll get your phone messages and stuff right on your NX or something. So it almost seemed like they were kind of trying to do that. At least that's the idea that it seemed like to me. I don't know if that'll happen or not. But
That'd be awful.
Who knows?
Awful. When I play that game, I want to like be immersed in that game. That's the last thing I want to be like going through some Zelda dungeon and all of a sudden my
Get a phone call.
call comes up and I'm like, stop it, get out of the way. That happens on my phone. Like that's the worst part of mobile gaming is when you're like right in the very few games that I really play a lot on my phone, and then all of a sudden a phone call or a text message comes up and like ruins my gameplay. I'm like, that's awful. Like when I'm playing a game, I want to like turn off all the function of the phone itself and just use it as a gaming machine. So like while some people might enjoy that, I would turn it off the first day.
Yeah, because I could just see playing the game and just seeing a Slack notification. Oh, NintendoFuse just posted this on Twitter. Like, oh, thanks.
I was playing my PS4 the other day. We were playing like 4-player local Rocket League, and I was in the top left corner because I was first player, and like every notification that I got like covered like most of my screen, and I'm like, this is awful. I need to turn those things off. It's like it's fine when you're like the whole screen, but when you're like in one little small quadrant, I'm like, I don't want any more notifications. I don't care if I got a trophy. Shut up.
Right.
It's just like playing Super Mario Maker and playing all those popular levels, and they're just like filled to the brim with comments. So it's like it's like you can't even see where Mario is. You just see all these characters' comments and drawings. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Barry? Any thoughts on this rumor?
I can see them doing the link with cell phones for getting texts or phone calls. I mean, cable boxes already do it. and they seem to be embracing smartphones now. And like Greg said about how it goes against everything Nintendo's done with multimedia. I mean, Panasonic had to make a GameCube to play DVDs. But if you also look in the past, Nintendo has gone away from multimedia and it's hurt them. The N64 didn't play CDs, thus it was no longer a CD player. The GameCube did not play DVDs, and it wasn't a DVD player, which is the very thing that got PS2 the win that generation. The Wii was not a DVD player either, and that hurt. And the Wii U and the Wii, but neither of them were Blu-ray players. Again, another thing that has hurt it. So yes, Nintendo is a game console, and yes, Nintendo is a game company, and they should focus on that too, 100%. But throwing in that little added feature isn't going to costly, and it just looks nice. Even if you never use it, it's still a bullet point. Bullet point, Blu-ray player. Bullet point, DVD player. Bullet point, syncs to your cell phone. Whether or not you use it, whether or not you turn it off, that's irrelevant. It's bullet points on the paper. As for the development, I actually see that being true. And the reason I see that is Nintendo cannot, well, I mean, they technically can afford in terms of monetary, but they can't afford to not have third parties on board. And the reason third parties have slowly disappeared from Nintendo since the Super Nintendo days is because it's always been harder to develop, and they have not sold well on Nintendo systems versus Nintendo's own first party. The N64 used cartridges versus the Saturn and the PlayStation CD. The GameCube, while it used a CD format, was a smaller CD, and things had to be, comprised to fit there, and they actually lost some stuff just to put it on. So some games never got ported over. You look at the Wii wasn't as powerful as the other systems. So it was and it had motion controls. So certain games had their own versions. In fact, the Wii is the very reason the PlayStation 2 lasted as long as it did, because they said, well, if we're going to develop a Wii game, let's bring it to the PS2 as well. Which is why games like Sonic Unleashed, came to the PS2, and it's the same thing as the Wii version. So the Wii U is the same thing. It's not as powerful as the other ones. So the Wii U got 360 and PS3 ports, but isn't getting PS4 and Xbox One ports for that very reason. So they can't do this anymore. They absolutely cannot do this. They need third party. So if they can make it as simple as, hey, look, understand this. You put this game out on PS4, Xbox One, and the NX. The PS4 is probably going to sell the most units of the game. Or the maybe the Xbox One, because the install base is much bigger, so you got to expect that. But if all you have to do is a copy and paste and maybe change one thing, and boom, you can put it on NX. Give us a smaller print run, but at least put your game out on it. And more companies will take that risk because it doesn't take man hours. If they've got to sit there and pay a team, X amount of hours to sit there and convert it, and the sales don't equal it, they're not making money. They're not going to do it. Which is why Wii U third parties aren't there. Which is why Wii third parties started falling off, and GameCube, etc. So I do believe that. I believe it would be stupid for them not to, because they need it. As for the power, I hope it's more powerful than an Xbox One. They did state in one of the rumors industry-leading chips, and while the Xbox One is very powerful, as is the PS4, that was 3 years ago they launched. So they're no longer industry-leading chips, because there's PCs out there that are much stronger and much more powerful. So I really hope they do. I hope they bank on Microsoft and Sony saying these are our platforms for the next 10 plus years. And they say, okay, well, this is going to be our platform for the next 10 plus years, but we're going to make it inherently more powerful right out of the gate. So it is industry-leading for 2016 or 2017. Nintendo has never sold a console at a loss with the exception of the 3DS after they dropped the price in 2011, and that was only for a short time. And I think the Wii U might have been a slight loss, but they stated if you bought one game, they were in the green. So, and if you're buying a Wii U, you're going to buy a game. So they really haven't sold a system at a loss, and I think they need to. I think they need to put out a $400 system and sell it for $300 at launch. I think they need to do that to get their foot in the door. They have the money to do it, and they really They need something because they can't go, oh, well, we're going to make it as cheap as possible. Here we can make it for $199 and sell it for $250, and people are going to look at it and go, it's another Fisher Price thing. It's kind of like with Oculus. Oculus price is like $600, and people are balking at it, like, oh my god. But if you want virtual reality, you're not going to want, you know, the cardboard. You're going to want something legit. You're going to want to have to pay for it. You know, if you want a car, you know, you're going to want a car that gets you from point A to point B. You're going to have to pay for it. So I hope they do it smart and take a loss per unit sold and recoup it with games like everybody else.
That could be really interesting if they launch something that let's say is just as powerful as the PS4 or Xbox One, and maybe just one step, whatever that means, one step above them, but they're still able to undercut them in price. That could be huge, because that means they could potentially, you know, if they have the third-party support as well, steal away people, especially going into the holiday season, when you're like, well, I was gonna get this PS4, but wow, this NX thing looks pretty good too, and it's cheaper. You know, they could steal some new customers away, and maybe you know, grab some ones that already own the other systems too. But that could be really interesting. I don't know if they would or not. But
the other thing is the handheld. See, with the handheld being sold separately than the console, they can make the handheld a $300 handheld and the system a $300 system, and combined it's $600. But you're buying them in two parts. And you look at the Vita, and you look at the 3DS, and the Vita is $100. It just blows the 3DS away. If you look at the graphics on the OLED screen, what the Vita can do is incredibly impressive. But why did the Vita fail? Because Sony didn't support it, didn't advertise it, didn't put out the games, and the 3DS walked all over it. Now you take the 3DS's momentum and Nintendo's first party on a system that is portable and as powerful as a PS4 or an Xbox One. That's insane. Now you're going to get console exclusive games now on a handheld because it's going to be an easy port. Think about that. You're talking about, you know, sport games. Let's talk sports. You're talking about why does EA release every year? What if they can take Madden, already selling 8 million units, copy paste, and now you're putting it on a handheld unit? Sports have never really worked well on handhelds because the technology's been inferior. Even the Vita started getting some good sports games, but they failed because no one was buying it. Well, now hey, copy paste and I get myself on a handheld. Think about the games like Ubisoft putting out, like Watch Dogs 2, boom, Grand Theft Auto. I mean, when Liberty City Stories came out on PSP, it was a huge deal. Same with Chinatown Wars with the DS. Think about that, a full-fledged Grand Theft Auto 5 or 6, portably with the graphics of an Xbox One PS4 on NX. That would be amazing.
The opposite. Like, you take your Pokemon, typically handheld, full-blown Pokemon games on a console and everything,
yeah.
You know? So it kind of goes both ways.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. I did want to. You mentioned the haptic feedback and the controls and stuff like that. That's one of the things I do love. Like, I was talking with some friends the other day about the differences in a lot of them have Xboxes and they have for a while, and they love the Xbox controller, which I don't. I just don't. But one thing I do like about the Xbox One controller is that feedback and the triggers and stuff. It's really cool. And so I think, you know, that part of the rumor tells me, like, if they don't do stuff like that that's already existing in consoles already, and they don't at least match that type of thing within the controls and everything, and then maybe take it a step above. But if they don't at least match that stuff, that would be silly, because I think that's one of the things that a lot of people really enjoy, is how the controls have evolved over time, and you know, I really enjoy that. It'd be really cool if they had those. It's a little touch. I mean.
So that they're going to go above and beyond. They started with Rumble, which was their introduction, and now, you know, you're talking about the extra force feedback and stuff in the controller. They're going to put like little needles in the thumbstick, so every time you get shot, it like jabs you quickly in the thumb, so you slowly start to bleed. You know, like just little pricks. So you really don't want to take any damage because it's super realistic. You know, you got to dodge those bullets because you're really starting to get physically hurt.
Couple that with your VR headset.
the little, after they prick your finger, the blood comes out. They have meters to read your blood sugar to see, like your health. So there's a health aspect of Nintendo there
That's
too.
the
right?
vitality sensor.
Quality
That's
of
what I was
life.
just
There
gonna
you go,
say.
vitality sensor. Yep.
It's all coming together now.
And you can use the Wii Fit 4 to dodge from side to side. And
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's gotta be
come together.
compatible.
True backward compatibility.
So,
Here's
see what happens.
we're missing one important question, and this is true. We were talking about the Smash Brothers rumor. Will it have the ability to play with GameCube controllers? Because that is a big deal, and that is a very important question.
If they allow that dongle thing that they allow for the Wii U, then just plug it in through USB.
yeah, that's what I was
For
gonna say.
some adapter or something.
It's a USB adapter, so it would work, I would imagine.
What scares me though in that rumor is that line if Samsung and the 2DS had a baby. That sounds disgusting in my head. I don't know if anybody else, but I don't want anything that looks like the 2DS and a Samsung device had a baby. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
I really hope they go with the clamshell again with the handheld, because that's one thing I do love about the 3DS, because I don't take my Vita around with me because I'm scared. I feel like it's so fragile because the thumbsticks are out and there's nothing covering the screen. I put it in a little case and stuff, but then I have to pull it out and unzip it, and granted, first world problems, but the 3DS, to me, I could just fold it up, boom, put it in my pocket, and I know it's protected, and I could just whip it out, no problem. So I really hope they stay with that clamshell design in some way.
Right. Yeah, I don't know how all that's going to play out. I would assume, in the coming weeks and months, more and more supposed leaks and rumors and stuff will happen. So we'll see, kind of, get an idea of what it may look like, and then I would think if it's coming this year, hopefully soon, we'll get some more details. We haven't had a Nintendo Direct this year, right? Aside from the Pokemon Direct.
6 minutes of Pokemon. That's it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know if I'd call that much of a direct.
Yeah, and I think if I remember correctly, the last one was in November.
Yeah.
So usually their old pattern was every other month, so it would have been in January, and then February. I don't really count the Pokemon Direct. Now March. So we're really overdue on stuff. So if we may start to get hints of things soon.
Was Smash Brothers a direct though? Because that was in December.
Well, that was December, yeah, the Smash Brothers Direct.
Yeah. I guess I think it's every other month, not counting the special directs. Usually, at least that's how they were doing it for a while. So I guess
probably get one in April, and then June is E3. But at the same time, they need to see if they're smart. They'll do one in April, and it'll be all their spring Wii U 3DS games. Blow the load, make it an hour-long direct, and then have E3 nothing but NX. Kind of like what they did with the Wii U was launching. They made E3 nothing but Wii U stuff. They need that whole time to talk about that system.
Yeah, definitely. So, we'll see what happens, but if it is coming this year, then that means we're going to have a lot to talk about in the coming months, definitely. So, it'll be very interesting to see how it all unfolds. So that pretty much wraps things up for this episode, for the podcast. Thank you to Mike as well as Richard Romero in the chat for your comments and everything. They're kind of talking along about, let's see some of the stuff here. Richard Romero does say he also misses the live shows from Nintendo. The directs are cool, but the reactions of a live crowd is awesome. So, they're all kind of voicing their opinions as well for what we were discussing. And as always, you guys can join in too, which is what's really cool about this podcast. So definitely stay tuned for our next episode. We'll keep you posted on NintendoFuse for when that is, and we'll talk the latest and greatest from Nintendo and get your thoughts as well. So hope you guys enjoyed, and thank you all again for listening and watching, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.
Bye, guys.
See ya.